Before we get started, yes, the setup is a little bit different. Don't get unsettled or anything, those of you, and I know who you are, that always pay attention to things in the background. This is just simply the lowest possible effort setup I could do, and it's the beginning of the year. I've been on a week of vacation, so I'm not setting up all my lights. But that being said, we do have a good lesson for you today, and it really centers still around Christmas. You know, this Sunday, the Sunday that this message is going to come out on, is actually the last Sunday that is the holiday season of Christmas. You know, this is where we get the 12 days of Christmas, and it leads into the church calendar during a period that is known as Epiphany, where we will continue on looking at the ministry of Christ. But right before we get out of Christmas, it's important to stop and just look at what it means to continue on this message of Christmas. I mean, people say that all the time, right? They say, you know, you should feel the spirit of Christmas all year round. You shouldn't just limit it to one season. But as Christians, what does that really mean? Does it really just mean hope and charity and love and generosity, or is there something more to it? Well, I think you can get a little glimpse of what that bigger thing may be when you look at some of the celebrations that people had surrounding the birth of Christ. Even some celebrations that might have even taken Mary and Joseph a little bit off guard. Simeon and Anna are two very interesting characters for some very different reasons. Simeon is an interesting character because he was a part of really the, religious class, something that a lot of the times in the New Testament we will see maybe kind of pushed to the side in favor of looking at common everyday individuals. I mean, after all, one of the main purposes of Christ coming to this earth was so that God would have a relationship with all of creation and not just these appointed prophets or priests. But yet Simeon is an individual who is a priest that's at the temple and is responsible for doing some of these forms and ceremonies that is typical of a priest. One of those being, things like circumcision and whatnot of a child. So as Jesus is going through the various forms and ceremonies that are appropriate for a baby or a young toddler, Simeon is there. And shockingly to Mary and Joseph, he knows about the coming Christ. It's something he had been talking about for quite some time. And so you hear him praise, something here out of Isaiah that we'll get to a little bit more in a moment. But when he's doing that, you can see the undertones of redemption, of this idea of newness, the newness of all creation. And the same thing is true of Anna. Now, Anna is also an interesting character because she is worded in your Bible as a prophetess. And sometimes a prophetess meant that it was an individual that was a wife of a prophet. But in the case of Anna, it would appear that she was actually a prophet. And prophets, a lot of times who were female, they exhibited their spiritual gift in a very different way from a lot of men. But yet you see Anna, a prophet, also having this foreknowledge of who Christ was. And so in these two individuals, you can see that there is this third-party validation of what Joseph and Mary had gone through. And I think this is so poignant for our own relationships with Christ. Because oftentimes we may sit here and have our own journey, and a lot of people will talk about, your truth and follow your path and your spiritual walk. But we neglect sometimes the importance of sharing that with other individuals. Oftentimes, just as in the cases of Simeon and Anna, you share the fact that you're having the spiritual walk with other people, in their case, Mary and Joseph, and you can see that Mary and Joseph were amazed by that. And that can be such an encouraging thing whenever you are undergoing certain changes in your own life and you share those with other individuals, whether that's a pastor, whether that's your friends, or whether that's, just another stranger, another acquaintance from other blocks of life. So let that be a little tangent that encourages you to share your faith and your spiritual walk with other individuals. But getting back to the main theme of both Anna's message and Simeon's message is this idea of redemption, is this idea of newness. And what I want to encourage you this year is that as people say things, and use the cliche phrases like new year, new me, or new year, new you, I want you to look at yourself and, really critically ask yourself, what is it that is intended to be new? What is the thing that is old that needs to go away? This is core to the reason why Christ came. And so when people talk about carrying Christmas with them their entire lives, carry it throughout the entire year, not just during this one season, that's really what they're talking about, is carrying this newness, this redemption. So what I want to do is something a little bit different. Typically what we do is, I have another title card with questions for you to look over. Today, what I want you to do is this. I want you to stop and I want you to think about what the aspects of your life are that are in need of newness. And I'm not just talking about, trivial things. There might be some trivial things, but what are the aspects of your life that maybe you've been neglecting working on? What are things that maybe have been revealed to you? What are things that maybe are there, or things that maybe used to be a part of you and are just eating you up? Think about what those things are. Just pause for a second. Do you have it? Do you have an idea of what that is? Now, with that in mind, instead of sitting here and talking with a bunch of discussion questions, I want you to hear what it is Simeon is quoting when he talks about Isaiah. Listen to the prophecy that we get through the prophet Isaiah. Think about those things that you need to work on and listen to the mighty God that is here to redeem you from the things that you can't redeem yourself. A voice of one crying out, "Prepare the way of the Lord in the wilderness. Make a straight highway for our God in the desert. Every valley will be lifted up, and every mountain and hill will be leveled. The uneven ground will become smooth, and the rough places a plain. And the glory of the Lord will appear, and all humanity together will see it, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken." A voice was saying, "Cry out." And another said, "What should I cry out? All humanity is grass, and its goodness is like the flowers of the field. The grass withers, the flowers fade when the breath of the Lord blows on them. Indeed, the people are grass. The grass withers, the flowers fade, but the word of our God remains forever. Zion, herald of good news, go up on a high mountain. Jerusalem, herald of good news, raise your voice loudly. Raise it, do not be afraid. Say to the cities of Judah, here is our God. See, the Lord God comes with strength, and his power establishes his rule. His wages are with him, and his reward accompanies him. He protects his flock like a shepherd. He gathers the lambs in his arms and carries them in the fold of his garment. He gently leads those that are nursing. Who has measured the waters in the hollow of his hand and marked off the heavens with the span of his hand? Who has gathered the dust of the earth in a measure or weighed the mountains on a balance and the hills on the scales? Who has directed the Spirit of the Lord? Who has given him counsel? Who did he consult? Who gave him understanding and taught him the path of justice? Who taught him knowledge and showed him the way of understanding? Look, the nations are like a drop in a bucket. They are considered as a speck of dust on the scales. He lifts up the islands like fine dust. Lebanon's cedars are not enough for fuel, or its animals enough for a burnt offering. All the nations are as nothing before him. They are considered by him as empty nothingness. With whom will you compare God? What likeness will you set up for comparison with him? An idol? Something that a smelter casts and a metalworker plates with gold and makes silver chains for? A poor person contributes wood for a pedestal that will not rot. He looks for a skilled craftsman to set up an idol that will not fall over. Do you not know? Have you not heard? Has it not been declared to you from the beginning? Have you not considered the foundations of the earth? God is enthroned above the circle of the earth. Its inhabitants are like grasshoppers. He stretches out the heavens like a thin cloth and spreads them out like a tent to live in. He reduces princes to nothing and makes judges of the earth like a wasteland. They are barely planted, barely sown. Their stem hardly takes root in the ground when he blows on them, and they wither, and a whirlwind carries them away like stubble. To whom will you compare me, or who is my equal? Asked the Holy One. Look up and see who created these. He brings out the stars by number. He calls them by name. Because of his great power and strength, not one of them is missing. Jacob, why do you say, and Israel, why do you assert? My way is hidden from the Lord, and my claim is ignored by my God. Do you not know? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the whole earth. He never becomes faint or weary. There's no limit to his understanding. He gives strength to the faint and strengthens the powerless. Youths may become faint and weary, and young men stumble and fall, but those who trust in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not become weary. They will walk and not faint. The message of Christ is a message fundamentally of salvation. Salvation from a thing from which we could not save ourselves. Whatever you are dealing with, whatever you have dealt with, that is exactly what Christ is more than capable of dealing with. This idea of invitation and salvation and, you feeling, called to the altar and everything is something that a lot of times in our church we don't talk about because of kind of the format of our church. But I would encourage you this. When you sit here and you look at your life, at some point in time, you have to ask yourself if you are truly embracing the redemptive power of Jesus Christ. If you are accepting that gift of grace that Christ has afforded you on the cross. If you have, then that is something that is a blessed thing. I mean, it's hard to describe. It's something that gives you peace. It's something that gives you comfort. It's something that helps you to overcome whatever may have existed in your past. But if you have never experienced that, then I invite you to please pray about this. Come talk to somebody. Talk to me. Send me an email, a text, whatever. Talk to another trusted individual in your life. But do not let a moment go by where you do not experience the redemptive power of Christ. Because after all, the reason why God sent His Son to this earth was not so that He could be honored in a manger. It's not so that we could get some pretty stories. It's so He could reconcile all mankind back to the Creator. And when we say all mankind, that means you. That means whatever it is that you think keeps you from being good enough, keeps you being worthy enough, keeps you from being holy enough. Christ came for you, and He would do it all over again. Don't let that invitation go to waste. I beg you. If you have not made a decision, please let someone know. Contact me. Let's talk about it. Because I promise that will be a new you that will last far longer than any resolution that you could possibly make. That's our lesson that we have for today. I hope you're able to get something out of it. Until we can meet again, God bless.